The new skilling boss has been out for 2 weeks now, and I think it's time we have a little chat about it. Has it been a good release for Runescape 3? A worthy follow-up to Runescape's second most popular boss, Croesus? Yes, that's a fact by the way, believe it or not. Or does it leave a lot to be desired? Those questions and a discussion about the rewards will be the topic of today's video. Leave a like to help me out, subscribe if you are new as we're trying to get to 10k subscribers by the end of 2025, and enough waffling, my name's Chevalric, and let's talk about it. The Gate of Elidinis. I think it's best if we talk about the encounter itself first, as all the other aspects like the experience rates, money per hour, the rewards, and even the requirements to even do this boss all kind of tie into each other. I'm gonna be honest with you here, I personally do not enjoy this encounter too much. Does it make it a bad encounter because of that? No, not by definition, but it just feels a bit meh to me. And I think that word summarizes this entire boss release to me in general. I feel like the mechanics of siphoning, mining and restoring are a bit repetitive after doing it for a while, where mechanics like the choreographed floor feel just meh to me once again. To me, it's just one of those things that are well designed, but to be honest, with RuneScape being unresponsive at times, it makes it just not feel great. And with you messing up once, it can be the difference between 2 cycling and 3 cycling the boss. Something I actually do enjoy, being tick perfect at bosses, but not when some of it is out of my control due to lag. The boss actually felt best to me when there were bugs, and that sounds really weird. When you had to sidestep once to dodge the floor underneath you behind the gate, that's when the boss felt the most responsive to me. Sure, it was a bug and needed fixing, but I'd way rather of them reduce the range to 1 tile than fixing it to work as intended. Another thing I kind of dislike is that the bomb mechanic is undodgeable. Yes, you can use barricade, but you can only do it once. I understand that the gate is there to protect you from it, but it still doesn't really encourage you to learn the mechanic when you have to face tank it. By no means is this boss poorly designed. Just because I don't enjoy it doesn't make it a bad boss by definition. You could argue that Croesus is repetitive too, and quite frankly it is. But to me it just feels more rewarding to do Croesus, both GP wise but even experience wise. This boss was promoted to be a viable way to train up your skills as well.
The Gate of Elidinis will be a great way to level up your skills in an exciting, fast-paced environment, while also earning some powerful rewards too.
Not best in slot by any means, but decent. Don't get me wrong, the agility XP at roughly 60ish k an hour and divination experience at 200k an hour seem to be decent to good, which is great, but you mine just as much and that is only 50 to 60ish k XP an hour? That doesn't make that much sense to me. The AFK crafting method, that probably wasn't intended, is also 200k experience an hour, which is great, but yet again, not meant to be there. This boss is yet again a great example of why do we put in effort to not really get rewarded with experience? Well, Chef, it's because we get GP. Yeah, no, sure, you do, but the loot overall is very underwhelming. Croesus' experience rates are roughly 50 to 80k experience an hour in their respective skills, which is almost on par with this boss, bar the divination experience. But at Croesus, you can make upwards to 50 million GP an hour, and at this boss, it will probably settle at roughly 20 to 25 million GP an hour, with way higher requirements when it comes to prerequisites. We talked about this in my Should the New Skilling Boss Be Accessible to Skillers video, and I don't think that a skilling boss should by definition be for skillers, but it's a boss you beat with your skills. But the truth of the matter remains is that the entry requirements to the gate are a lot more steep than level 80 stats in any of the 4 Croesus skills, with you needing to complete the Oath of the Devourer quest, which pretty much requires you to have completed the entire 4th questline and Necromancy one. When you have 86 archaeology to do so, you most likely have level 80 or even higher in one of the Croesus skills. So why on earth would you do this new boss over Croesus? Even Croesus masses will probably match a GP an hour at the gate, as big pages are super expensive. Not just the common loot is kind of mediocre, the uniques are too. Yet again, best summarized with the word meh. Don't get me wrong, the memory dowser is actually good and a nice upgrade to the divination skill, actually improving the experience rates and quite honestly, chillness of the skill itself. especially when you do not have the Divine Conversion Relic to dump all memories into the Rift at once, which in my opinion should be how the skill works in its base form, but that's for a different video. The Dowser is sitting at roughly 350 million GP as of me making this video, about 300 million less than the Core Hammer from Croesus, and roughly 150 more than the Foul Torch, which will most likely skyrocket with the new woodcutting update. The Runic Tuner coming in at 125 mil is just meh. Sure, the buffs look good on paper, as shown on screen, but the fact it's at a random rune altar just makes it kind of mid. If you could have picked any rune, so picking the good runes, then sure, it's great to increase profits or runes made, but you can't. Don't get me wrong, if you could have picked a rune, this might be a bit too overpowered. But I'd rather of them nerf the effects a bit than force you to go to a random runecrafting altar. Before we get onto the scripture, the prayer scroll is just meh. Unless you're a real hardcore player, using curses is just so much chiller, and the latent offering attaching to the necklace is just underwhelming once again. Sure, 10% extra experience in exchange for no output with fletching and crafting is a nice buff, especially for fletching as darts are pretty much worthless anyway. But for crafting, you would never use it, as dragonstones or any craftable thing are a big loss as it is. And making it even worse with this item, it just makes no sense to use it. If it was 20% or even 30% extra experience, it would 100% be worth the trade-off for crafting, but at its current state, once again, meh, unless you're really rich. And I don't want to be negative about this update, but I'm just saying as I see it. Because the scripture especially, coming in at 100 million GP, just highlights the problem with RuneScape 3 that I have regarding skilling. It spawns these souls that are like Saren spirits, but you have to interact with them in different ways, trapping them or running away from them depending on which one it is. All this at an attempt to make skilling more interactive. Sure, you get an extra 90k experience an hour, which is huge and makes it 100% worth using if you want experience. But to me, it seems like a poor attempt to make skilling active instead of making an active skilling method that is rewarding to do experience wise. So overall, the Gate of Elidinis, to me, is like a 6 out of 10. It's well designed when it comes to the mechanics and it does play well. Even if I find it not too enjoyable and the game not to be responsive enough to handle these mechanics, they are good on paper. But the experience rates, bar definition, are underwhelming, and the common and unique loot, yet again bar the memory dowser, are just meh to me as well, especially with the entry requirements being so high. If these requirements were swapped with Croesus, I think the balancing would have actually been spot on, but they aren't, so yeah. What do you think about all of this, and should it be available to skillers? Check out the video on screen, like this one before you do, and subscribe. My name is Chevalric, and I'll see you guys in my next video.